There you go. We're carrying on this series called Growing on the Front Line, and we're in week 3. If you missed the last couple of weeks, you can catch up on YouTube or FBC Next thing. And Dan, so thankfully, has got the remote for us, and yes, everything's great. It's a great start so far. There you go. Anyway, so this stuff is all about how do we grow on our front line. Now, we're all on a journey of faith. Some of us have been on this journey for longer than others. Some of us have been following Jesus for many years, or might seem for our whole lives. And some of us are just starting out. We might not even actually think, well, I'm actually a follower of Jesus. You might not even think that you're on that journey. But the fact that you're here or you're watching or listen to this back later on shows that actually there's something going on where you're thinking, well, is there something to this faith thing? Does Jesus exist? You might not be sure what it is that you think or what you believe, but you're on this progression, which isn't linear, but obviously for the sake of just trying to communicate that, we can look at that. And the point is, wherever we are, we can continue to grow in our faith and our understanding of who God is and who we are. As we understand who God is better, actually, it helps us to understand who we are better. And our lives are broken up into various areas. You know, we've got church life, we've got work life, we've got family life, we've got social life, we've got health life, we've got financial life, we've got our emotional life, our mental life, we've got our spiritual life as well. And the challenge comes if we think our spiritual life just intersects with our church life, and then all those other aspects isn't part of our spiritual life. What happens when we do that is our faith stalls, it stagnates, it doesn't grow. And what we're trying to look at is recognizing that all of us have a front line. That's where we spend most of our time. And for most of us, that isn't here. That's a good thing. That's how it was supposed to be. But how do we continue to grow in our faith, to activate that spiritual side of who we are, for want of a better phrase, wherever we are? If we only associate the spiritual part of our lives with our church lives, well, we'll only grow on a Sunday or midweek in a small group. And faith is for life, not just for Sundays. That's what we're talking about, and that's what we're exploring today. But to kick us off, I want to have a chat with somebody about their front line and how their faith intersects with their front line. So please welcome my great friend Dan, who's going to come on the stage. Give him a round of applause. Thanks, Dan. Here you go. You can have a chair. I've got a chair. Let's sit down. Let's have a little conversation.
All right.
So just tell us quickly a little bit about yourself for people who don't know you.
Okay, so I'm Dan. We've been coming here. Well, I say we. I mean me, my wife, Catherine, Josh and Joel, our boys. We've been coming here for just under 2 years, I think it is. We help out upstairs quite a bit with the kids' work. I shouldn't say I, because Catherine will get pretty upset about that. We run a company, small company, in tree surgery and landscaping. I would say that's about it. 2 very active boys, 1 less active now, because he's just broke his arm, but usually very active, but there we go.
So just describe quickly your front line for us generally. What's that look like?
So my front line, I would say, consists of 2 aspects at the moment. Mainly work. It seems to be where I usually, we'll go on to that in a minute, usually spend most of my time. And the other one would be family, and whatever that involves. That's sports clubs, that's this, there, and running kids around here, everywhere. But everywhere is an opportunity in it. So I would say that was the 2 aspects of my front line right now. Cool.
And so just talk to me a bit about how your faith intersects with those aspects of your life.
I think, to be honest, I became a Christian by being on the front line, working with children out in estates in Reading. I wasn't a Christian at the time, but I became a Christian through that work that was happening there. And I think so I've always been inspired. And one of the main reasons was I was inspired by the leader of this work, that actually he lived out his life. He lived out his relationship with Jesus wherever he went and all the time. And I think it's just something that I kind of learned a lot from him. And it was because I saw him that it kind of made Christianity more of a reality to me. I went to church when I was younger, but I always had a problem with it because it seemed like you got these stories and acts and you got these gospel messages and all of it all seemed to be very active, and I was just like, if it's just church, then that doesn't make sense for me. So that caused me big problems, I think, growing up, and kind of led me to walk away from it. But I came back to faith through someone who was very active, I would say, on their front line. And so for me, it's something that I've always felt it's really important, and I'm pretty passionate about it, to be honest.
And so you alluded just a minute ago that so work is a little bit different for you at the moment.
Yeah, I don't usually wear like gym clothes, to be honest, to church. But basically, the real reason is because I can't do a button up on my jeans at the moment because I've torn my tendon, a bicep tendon, and I'm in recovery at the moment. So this arm really does not a lot.
Yeah.
To be honest. So my front line looks a little bit different to what it has done for the past 20 years.
So that's your left arm.
That's my left arm, Chris. Yep.
You're left-handed.
I'm the left-handed, Chris. Yep.
And your job involves something with trees and chopping things and stuff like that.
It involves using my left arm to its max all the time.
Yeah. So like power tools and all those sort of things.
All of it. Yeah.
Chainsaws.
I've been trying to work out what I could go back to work and do, and there is nothing.
Yeah. So, but can you do that one-handed? With
not safely.
Not
no.
safely.
Yeah. Health and safety would have a little bit of a problem with that. So yeah.
So. Describe your front line for me, like now. How's it been since the injury and stuff?
It's been a challenge. It's been actually quite good, I'd say, in some ways. I was always somebody, I think that. So 2 years ago, we took over the company, and I think my mindset has changed a bit because I became a little bit maybe obsessed with making the company work in whatever way that may be. Whereas actually, I used to go to work with the full intention every day of who can I share the gospel with today? And we know sharing the gospel is rarely done with words, right? It's a lot of actions. It's a lot of what we do. It's how we are. And my mandate has always been, I don't want to be a stumbling block for someone to become a Christian. I don't want someone who hears the gospel and thinks back to me and goes, well, hold on, that don't add up because that life didn't match what I'm hearing right now. I never wanted to be that person. So I've always been really conscious about what I say, what I do, how I say it, how I do it, and looking for that opportunity to share faith with people. However, I would say that through then running the company, maybe I was a little bit more, I don't know what the word is, a little bit more, my mindset kind of changed into how do I provide more for the people I'm working with, how do I look after them, how do I, whatever. And I think this has been a real time for me to just stop and go, hold on a minute. There's something far more important than running a company. Yes, it takes time. Yes, it takes resource. But actually, there's a real reason we're here. And the real reason is not just to run a company. So it's been a real time of reflection, Chris, to be honest. Forced reflection. Yeah. I haven't enjoyed all of it. And I'm not a patient guy. I'm not someone to sit down or enjoy sitting down on the sofa. Many people have come to me and said, oh, yeah, you got Netflix, you got this, you got that. I was just like, give me 2 hours, I'm done. Like, literally.
You've done
please.
Netflix. I mean,
I've done. I can't do it anymore.
He's completed it.
Yeah, in 2 hours, yeah. So it's been a real struggle, a real trial, but there's been some real thinking time as well to be more effective on that front line, how that looks.
So where have you seen God actually or practically at work on your front line recently?
Oh man, so yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I've always been convinced that we've just got to do what we can do. And I used to believe, when I first became a Christian, I believed if I do what I do, or if I do what I'm meant to do right, then literally people are just going to come to know Jesus just like that. And I used to get bitterly disappointed because it didn't always work out like that. I believed that when I prayed for people, they would be healed and that would be it. And yeah, you get those stories, which is cool, with customers sometimes, opportunities. I would say one would be, so I work in a labour kind of area, do you know what I mean? Like everyone's labourers and this, that, and the other. And there's a certain person that you need to be, or they think, or people we think we need to be in a labourer, and that's kind of a hard person. That's someone that doesn't want to show any weakness, doesn't want to show any softness, certainly doesn't want to talk about God or some father in heaven that loves them. Like that would show a sign of weakness, right? Because they don't need that because they're big and they're strong and they're doing what they need to do. And I'd say there's one story I'll share with you quickly. It was one guy, a very hard man, and I later found out why. He had some pretty tough experiences in his life. And I was on the way to work one day, and I was just praying, okay, God, what do I need to say to whom today? And he said, I felt God say, you need to go and tell this guy that I love him and that I see him as a child. And I was like, oh, no. God, you are joking. Like, seriously, of all the people, please not this guy. Like, he's just going to punch me in the face. Do you know what I mean? And so with sweat and a little bit of nervousness, I went up to him. I said, look, take this as you want, right? I was praying on the way to work, and I felt God say this for you. And he turned around to me, And at first it was like, uh-oh, here we go. But actually he said, really? I said, yeah. I said, take it for whatever it means to you, man, but I'm just the messenger. Please don't kill me. And he turned around and he said, I know you believe in God. I was like, yeah. He said, well, I've been having a dream recently, and I keep having the same dream, and I don't know what it means. And I was like, right. And he said, can you tell me what it means? And I was like, right.
You've got the right name.
I've got two options. I've got two options here. I either say no, which would be quite a nice one, or we go out on a limb, don't we? And we'd say yes. I said, do you know what? You tell me the dream. Give me 12 hours. I'll be with you by the end of the day. I'll tell you what it means. I said, I'm not going to tell you what it means. I said, but I've got to ask God what it means because it's God that's in charge of this situation. So he shared this dream and this and the other, and I went away and I was just like, oh my goodness, what? That is ridiculous. what am I doing? Who do I think I am? And then I was just like, right, okay, no, forget this. We've got to fall on this one. This is good. I was doing a bit of tree surgery that day, and I was at the top of this tree, and I was just like, God, you've got to come through here because this is you, not me. And all of a sudden, I felt God tell me what the dream meant. And literally, I didn't realize this, but I shouted out, yes, at the top of this tree, right? Groundsman on the floor was just like, Dan, you all right? And I was like, yeah, just got interpretation of a dream. And he's like, what? I said, no, seriously, like, it's good. He's like, okay, I'll tell you when I get down. Anyway, we went back to him afterwards and went into his little cabin and just said, look, this is what I feel your dream means. And this is nothing to do with me, right? This is God. And if he's doing this for you, it seriously means he wants to let you know something. And told him. And then I had an opportunity to share the actual kind of like gospel message with him, gave him a book to help him. Do you know what? Our job is not, we don't always see people come to know Christ, do we? And I was gutted because I wanted to see him come to know Christ that day. But we don't always do that. But sometimes if we can move someone from just one step closer. And I feel our job, especially now in this society, is to kind of just help people realize there is a God. And there is a God out there that loves them. And actually, it's to move people a couple of steps closer. It may be just to heal some of the hurt that's been done to them by previous experiences of Christians or God or this, that, and the other. I find the more conversations I have, the more apologies I have to give on behalf of Christians that have spoken to people in the past, you know. That's no judgmental. That's not people maybe a little bit too passionate in the past or this, that, and the other. But actually, we've got to have these real conversations with people. And actually, we do have to humbly say sorry for some of the experiences that people have had, albeit maybe even from church. Yeah. But you've got to be real with people. And God wants to be real with people. And we are his feet, his arms, his voice. And so going out on a limb, I'd encourage you. Try it. It's exciting. It's scary, but it's exciting.
Good. Just one last question quickly. What does that do for you and in your faith when those sort of encounters?
Chris, it makes it a reality, doesn't it? It brings it back to a reality of what I'm here for what I was saved for. And for me, like, the Great Commission at the end of Matthew is a huge verse. It's something I was sharing with the young people this morning. It's what we are. We're here to go and make disciples. And that looks different depending on who you're talking to and where you are and what you're doing. Like I said, a lot of time it's action to back up the one-day opportunity that you will have to share the gospel with them. And if we don't back it up with our actions, then I think sometimes our gospel can seem empty because if we're not living it, then when we do get the opportunity to share, it's like, well, I don't see any difference in your life. Do you know what I mean? Why would this be true? And I think, so what it does for me is it continually challenges me. Am I saying the right thing? Am I living the right way? Am I living the way that Jesus wants me to live? Am I fulfilling what he wants me to fulfill? And I think these sort of opportunities and these chances that you get just keep you on the edge, just keep you sharp, as it were, and keep a reminder to me of who I've been, or where I've been saved from, and who I am now. And actually, I owe him my all.
That's excellent. Thanks, Dan. Let's give Dan a massive round of applause. I'm always really inspired and encouraged by people who just live out their faith wherever they are. I recognize I get that easy. My front line is this sort of stuff, and I get to pray at work. We get to talk about faith and those things. I exist in that environment, and I'm always massively encouraged by people who just step out of their comfort zone wherever they find themselves and actually see. And it looks different depending on who you are. You know, you're not Dan. And we've all got our own personalities, our own gifts, our own abilities, and those things. But actually recognizing that when we're on our front line, that's a place where God can turn up and show up and actually be at work in us, helping us, supporting us, encouraging us, but also equipping us to do whatever it is that he wants us to do, to be fruitful. We've talked a little bit about that in this series. So, that's what we're talking about. This is difficult stuff, and I'm sure as Dan was sharing some of the things, you think, gosh, I would never be able to do some of that stuff maybe, or the courage that takes. When we actually allow our faith to intersect with our front line, we can see God at work in us and through us, and that continues to encourage us and inspire us and challenge us. So that's what we're talking about. But we're going to change tack a little bit as we talk about the thing that we're going to talk about this morning. And I've got this question for you. What do you regret? What do you regret? Think about a decision that you have made recently or back in your life. What is it that you regret? What's the thing that's just come to mind for you that you regret that's still there? We're going to start over here and we're going to go around the room one by one. We're not going to do that, of course. You know, we've all done something, we've all thought something, we've all said something, we've all acted, interacted, or reacted in a way that we later regret. Every single one of us has those things. So let me ask you another question. Why did you do it? You know, if you regret it, why do you do it? We've all got these stories, we've all got these choices that we've made that we regret. Looking back, we wish we hadn't done that. And if we could go back and change time or change an action or change something, we'd go back and undo that. But why did we do it in the first place? We all said it, we all bought it, we all responded in that way. We were there, we made the choice, we made the decision, we acted in that way that we now regret. So if you would rather have not done it in the first place, why did you do it in the first place? That's what I want us to spend some time thinking about this morning. And if this is you, you know, if you have got things in your life that you're looking back and you regret, you think that was a bad choice, I shouldn't have said that, I shouldn't have done that, I shouldn't have gone there, I shouldn't have watched that, I shouldn't have acted in that way. Well, let me tell you, you are in good company this morning, because looking around, we've all done the same. We're all in the same boat. We've all had similar experiences. But it's not just us who has those similar experiences. There's a guy called Paul who was one of the leaders of the early church, and he wrote lots of the letters that we find in the New Testament. Paul has exactly the same thing. Paul has a life that is, when he looks back, there's regrets in his life that he wished he hadn't done. Let's take a look at something that Paul wrote to the church in Rome, and it says this: I don't understand what I do. For what I want to do, I do not do, but what I hate, I do. Does that sound familiar? Do you ever feel like that? You know, I don't understand what it is that I do, Paul says, because what I want to do, you know, this is what I want to do, but for some reason I don't do that. And I don't want to do this, but I find myself doing that sort of thing. Does that sound familiar? Can you think of examples in your life where you have done that? You know, I don't want to do this, I want to do that, but I find myself ending up doing this, and that I want to do, I leave undone. You can fill in the blanks. You know, what's the equivalent of this and that for you in your life? You know, let's read on and see what Paul carries on as he talks through this. He says, for I have the desire to do what is good, but I cannot carry it out. For I do not do the good I want to do, but the evil I do not want to do, well, this is what I keep on doing. I have this desire to do this over here. I can see that this is good, this is helpful, this is beneficial, this is going to encourage me, and it's going to bless people around me. And I see this and think, well, I know that's not going to be good for me. I know that's not going to be good for the people I come into contact with. My desire is this. And I don't want to do that, but for whatever reason, I find myself neglecting this, and I find myself leaning into that. And Paul uses strong words. He says, the evil I do not want to do, this I keep on doing. And we see this time and time again throughout our lives. Let me give a flippant example. Maybe the this over here is you want to be healthier, you want to exercise better, you want to eat better, you want to get more rest. That's the this that you want to do. But what's the that you find yourself doing? Well, you find yourself sitting up late at night, binge watching Below Deck, eating a whole packet of hobnobs. Is that just me? Okay, maybe that's just me. I know I shouldn't do that. I know I should go to bed on time. I know I should exercise. I know I should eat better. That's what I desire. But actually what I find myself overdoing is these other things. Or, if we delve a little bit deeper, maybe you want to be a little bit more, you want to be more patient, you want to be more understanding, you want to be able to actually be aware of what it's like for other people, not just think about what it's like for me. You want to have that time for people. That's this that you want to be. And you go into work and there's that colleague who hasn't done what they've said they would do. And, maybe it's not the first time that it's happened. Time and time again, they're supposed to have done this thing and it's not been done. And how do you respond? You fly off the handle, you lay into them, you read them the riot act. You don't pause long enough to think, well, is there another side to this story? And yeah, of course, there's discipline and accountability and all those sort of things. But how you act and how you interact and how you react, I want to be this sort of person. I don't want to be that person. But you find yourself being that person, whatever it is. I mean, we could spend all morning, all day going through example after example after example of the choices that we make when this is what we desire. We know this is good, and we know this isn't going to be good for us. We know this isn't going to help us or help the people around us. And the question is, why did you do it? Why did you choose this? Why did you have the cheeseburger instead of the salad for lunch? Simple. You wanted it. It's not rocket science, is it? Why did we act in this way? Yeah, of course, there's a part of me that wants this, but there's also a part of me that wants this. In lots of cases, not all cases, but in lots of cases and situations, the reason we act in this way that we later regret is because for whatever reason, in that moment, you wanted it. You wanted to say it, you wanted to do it, you wanted to watch it, you wanted to go there or not do it. And yeah, looking back, you regret it. Looking back, you realize that was the wrong choice and this was the right choice. But let's be honest, come on. You were there. The thing that you have in common for every regret in your life is you. You made the choice. You were in that situation. You were in that position. It was you that did it. Sometimes we need to take some ownership of it. Why did I do it? Why did I say it? Why did I buy it? Because I wanted to. In that moment, in that place, in that time, I wanted to. Yeah, of course there's something going on. There's something more going on. But I wanted it. Last week we looked at this concept that our choices define our actions and a recognition that in large part we are what we do. Our choices in large part define and describe who we are. But today I want us to delve a little bit deeper into that and recognize that our desires influence our choices. If we are what we do, if our choices go a long way to defining or describing who we are, and we thought about, well, who is it that I want to be? Are the choices I'm making today helping me be the person I want to be tomorrow? Well, we need to recognize that the choices I make today are influenced by the desires that I have in this moment. And it's true in all of those situations, in all of those actions, all of those interactions, and all of those reactions. What is the desire that is going on within me in this moment? And actually having that ability to pause long enough and to think, well, why did I do it? Why did I act in that way? Why did I say that? Why did I go there? Why did I buy that? What is going on? And of course, it's more complicated than just a desire, because sometimes for some of us, we're conditioned to do that. We've been influenced in our upbringing or the people around us, and it causes us to act in those ways. But for whatever reason, whether it's upbringing or conditioning or just an innate or an inbuilt desire, it influences what it is that we do in that moment. And unless we get that right, our lives will be filled with regret and making poor decisions. Let's go back to Paul. We're going to zoom out a little bit and read around some of the verses that he's just said. So he says, this is what Paul's saying, as it is, it's no longer I myself who do it. He's again talking about this thing that he regrets, that he doesn't want to do. But it's sin living in me. For I know that good itself does not dwell in me, that is, in my sinful nature. It sounds a little bit confusing. We'll explain all this in a minute. For I have the desire to do what's good. We read this already. But I cannot carry it out. For I do not do the good I want to do, but the evil I do not want to do, this I keep on doing. Now, if I do what I do not want to do, it's no longer I who do it, but it's sin living in me that does it. Now, there's lots of do's and all those sort of things in there's a bit confusing. But Paul, he sort of seems saying, well, it's not actually me that's doing it. You know, it's no longer I myself who do this, but it's sin living in me. And Paul says, you know, I know that that good itself does not dwell within me. Paul, what are you talking about there? You know, well, that's actually in my sinful nature. But then he says, but I do have the desire to do what's good, but I can't carry it out. And you know what Paul is talking about, it sounds a little bit like he's making an excuse, doesn't it? It sounds a little bit like he's saying, well, it's this sort of evil that's within me, this sinful nature. It sounds a little bit like Paul saying, it's not my fault that the devil made me do it, which is a little bit strange and a little bit peculiar. But let's read on, and I think we're understanding a bit more of what Paul is saying. So he says this, so I find this law at work. Although I want to do good, evil is right there with me. For in my inner being, I delight in God's law, but I see another law at work in me, waging war against the law of my mind and making me a prisoner of the law of sin at work within me. And so Paul is sort of, and he talks about this quite a lot through this letter. He describes this battle of, it almost seems like good and evil that's going on within him. And it's a bit like, I'm going to show my age. Remember the Tom and Jerry cartoons? And you've got sort of like Angel Tom, and you've got like the Devil Tom, and Tom's faced with this decision. Is he going to sort of eat Jerry or do whatever it is? And the angel one appears and says, no, Tom, you shouldn't do that. That's not very nice. Because it always talks like that. And then the devil Tom appears and goes, no, go on, Tom, you should do that. Because again, that's how the devil talks and all those sort of things. And Tom is faced with this sort of conflict. What does he do? And what does he do? Well, he always goes with the devil because it's funnier to watch on cartoons. It makes better TV, and he makes that choice. And it seems a little bit that Paul is talking about this, that Paul is Tom, and he finds himself in this situation, and I want to do this. This is going to be good, or I don't want to do that because I know that's going to be bad. But there's a part of him that's saying, well, actually, no, it'll be fine. You'll enjoy it in the moment. Nobody will know, all of those sort of things. And there's this sort of battle going on about him, and you know, Paul talks about it's waging war within me. You know, later on in this letter, Paul uses this strange phrase of gratifying the flesh. He talks about like this sinful nature, the flesh that's at work within him, sort of trying to influence him to do this sort of stuff, and the spirit that's within him trying to do those other things. You know, this is the spirit, this is the flesh. And Paul's thinking about, you know, this is a battle within me because part of me, I desire this, but there's a big part of me that is pulling me in that direction. And the reason it's a war, it's a battle, is the more that we give in, the more that we listen, the more that we allow one of these forces that's at work within us to influence us, the more that we act on them, the stronger they become in our life. So Paul sort of paints this picture that if you give in to the sinful nature, the flesh side of your life, well, that will become stronger, more dominant in your life, and the spirit side will become weaker. But if you don't do that, if you don't give in, if you don't gratify the desires of the flesh, let's go around the room and say what we think that means. No, okay, we won't do that. You know, if we don't do that, then actually the spirit side gets stronger, and it's easier for us to follow what we desire when it comes to those things. The more we listen, the more we act, the stronger that this force becomes within us. But let's just think about, you know, the spirit and the flesh. Here's a question. You know, are the spirit and the flesh external factors? Paul seems to make an excuse. It's not me. You know, it's the sinful nature that's at work within me. It's someone else. Are they external to us? And that's a really interesting question to ask. It's a really interesting question to ponder. We could spend ages debating that and talking about that and theologizing over that, and it's interesting. But for what we're talking about at the moment, it's the wrong question. Because the reality is, and you know this to be true of yourself, you've got the flesh within you. You've got that sinful nature within you that's causing you to want to do something that you know you shouldn't, but you've also got the Spirit in you that's inspiring you to be better than you are in the moment. And that's true wherever you are on the spectrum of faith. You know, if you're a follower of Jesus, we believe and we recognize that the Spirit of God is a gift that Jesus has given to us. You know, the same Spirit that enabled Jesus to be and to do all he was and all he did, it's been given to us as followers of Jesus, that he's promised his Spirit to us. So if you're a follower of Jesus, if you've dedicated your life to believing in him and to following him and to acting as he would if he was in your situation, the Spirit of God is a gift that is given to you. But what if you've not made that choice yet? What if you're down here and you're still pondering it? You're still figuring that out. Do you have the Spirit of God within you? Well, again, that's a really interesting conversation that we could have. But the reality is, each and every one of us has been made by God, whether we believe it or recognize it or not. And we have the fingerprints of our Creator all over us. You might call it conscience. You might call it that little voice inside your head telling you, no, you shouldn't do that and you should do this. I would say, well, that's the Spirit of God at work within you. And the further down this journey we are, the more we choose to listen to the Spirit of God, the easier it becomes for us to actually go there and to not give into these things. So actually, whether they're external or they're internal is irrelevant. Well, actually, they are internal. They're at work within us. And this isn't an excuse. You know, we can't say the flesh side made me do it. It's a recognition that actually the Spirit is at work within me. And who am I going to listen to? Am I going to listen to that inbuilt desire or that innate desire that tells me I should do that, that's going to influence me over there? Or am I going to listen to the Spirit of God within me that desires what is good for myself? Now, the reality is, this is really difficult. You know, and if you were to look back through your life, and even just this week, I'm sure you could pinpoint places where you felt this tension at work, and maybe you did follow the Spirit side, or maybe you gave into the flesh side, and you're later regretting it, and that leaves us with regret. But let's remember, Paul is talking about this. Paul wrote a bunch of the letters that we find in the New Testament. Paul was influential and instrumental in the spread of the new movement of Jesus followers across the world. You could argue that if it wasn't for Paul, we wouldn't be here. No, actually, the church would have grown to Jerusalem and Judea and stopped and stalled. And basically, there was a church meeting, I think. You know, Paul and Peter and the other apostles and all those people, and they got a big world map out, and they looked at it, and Paul says, right, you take Jerusalem and Judea. He said that to Peter and Thomas. You take Jerusalem and Judea, and I'll take the rest. And everyone said, yeah, that's great. You know, Paul was massively influential in this sort of stuff. You know, God used him mightily. If it wasn't for him, arguably, we wouldn't be here talking about faith, because it wouldn't have come to us. Paul is a rock star when it comes to faith. He's the spiritual elite, and he struggles with this. So cut yourself some slack. Not as an excuse that it's okay for you just to constantly give in to this side and ignore that side, but Paul struggled with this. So you are going to struggle with this. We are going to find this difficult. So we can cut ourselves some slack. But it's important, there's a fine line there, that we don't use that as a permission slip, that we can go and do whatever we want. Let's read on, because Paul talks into that a bit. He says, what a wretched man I am. Who will rescue me from this body that's subject to death? Do you ever feel like that? You know, when you've made those mistakes and you've done those things that you shouldn't have done. You know, when you set this standard and you set the bar and thought, yeah, this is what I should attain to. This is who I want to be. I don't want to do that. This is what I want to do. But you find yourself doing that. Do you ever feel wretched in yourself, thinking, oh, where is the hope? How can I break free from this endless cycle of grief, this endless loop that I want to do this, I don't want to do that, but I end up doing that, and I regret it, and I make a promise, and I even probably bargain with God, no, please forgive me, please help me, I won't do that again, I'll go over here and I'll follow that. Only like 10 minutes later to find that you've gone that way again. This is what Paul is talking about. What a wretched man am I. Who will rescue me from this body that is subject to death? Where is the hope for me? Because I've tried and I've tried and I've tried, yet I still have this battle going on within me. I still have this pull to go to do this. I still have this desire because I want to say it, I want to do it. I want to act or interact or react in that way. That comes from within me. Where is the hope? Well, Paul says, thanks be to God who delivers me through Jesus Christ our Lord. And this is right at the end of Romans chapter 7. Romans 8, the next verse, is probably my favorite chapter, in the entire Bible, because he just talks about the amazing thing that Jesus has done and how Jesus rescues us, how Jesus delivers us from this stuff that is in us. You know, it starts off that there's no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus, that even though I follow this side, even though I mess up and I get it wrong, there's no condemnation for me. Why? Well, because I follow Jesus and God looks at me not through my sin, but through the perfection of his Son. That when God looks at me, he doesn't see all of those choices that I make where I mess up. He sees, when he looks at me, get your head around this, and the same is true for you if you're a follower of Jesus. He doesn't see your sin or your rebellion or your selfishness. He sees you through the lens of the perfect, spotless Jesus Christ. That Jesus literally covers you in this robe, and he sees you like that. He chooses to see you perfect. He chooses to see you free from accusation. And what this means is that I don't have to face the eternal consequence of my rebellion or my wrongdoing or my sin. Yeah, of course I've got to face the immediate consequences of that. I've got to stand up and live and pay whatever I need to do according to that. But I don't have to face the eternal consequences of my sin. When I act or interact or react in a way that I know isn't right, when God looks at me because of who Jesus is and because of what Jesus has done, he forgives me and he chooses not to look at that. So two amazing things happen. You know, firstly, I'm forgiven. That stuff that I do and I continue to do, I'm forgiven. And that doesn't, again, give me a pass to keep on doing it. You know, the first thing is I'm forgiven. But the second thing that's at work within me because of what Jesus has done is that he helps me to be this person and not to be that person. Because the Spirit of God is at work within me. I'm forgiven of the stuff that I do wrong when I make mistakes. But I also am equipped with the same Spirit that was at work within Jesus that can help me be the person that I was created to be. That it can help me be better than I am now. We're going to get the band back up stage just as we wrap this thing up. So this is going on in you. It's going on in Paul. It's going on in me. It's going on in each and every one of us. There's these two things at play. The sinful nature, you can call that whatever you want, and the Spirit. And we're left with a choice. Who are we going to listen to? You know, who are we going to follow? In that moment, let's recognize we do the things that we don't want to do because we want to do them. There's that temptation, that desire. And we know it's wrong. We know we shouldn't. We know we shouldn't say it. We know we shouldn't act in that way. But it's there and it's pulling us over here. But let's recognize that as strong as that pull is over there, there's a pull over here that is far greater, that is far stronger. And we are left in that moment, in each and every action, reaction, or interaction, with a choice to make. Who will I listen to? Who will I follow? Will I go with what I want in that moment that will cause me to actually make a choice that I later regret? Or actually, will I follow what I know deep down is better for me? Yeah, this way might be harder, this way might be easier, all of those things. But the amazing thing is, if you believe in Jesus and if you follow Jesus and if you dedicate your life to following him, to being and doing what he would do if he was in your shoes, his Spirit is at work within us that helps us to go this way. So who will you listen to? Let's stand to our feet, let's pray together, and let's sing together as we wrap up our time. Father God, I thank you so much that you've not left us on our own to do this by ourselves, but that you've placed your Spirit within us to equip us and to encourage us and to inspire us. And I pray that we would allow your Spirit to influence us, to be the people that we want to be, to make the choices that we know we want to make. I pray you'd help us listen to your Spirit at work within us, to not give in to that temptation or that desire to do what it is that we want to do in that moment, that we know we'll later regret. Give us self-discipline. Give us control because your Spirit's at work within us. Lord, I thank you that we're forgiven from all the stuff that we do wrong, but also we're equipped to be the people that you've created us to be. Help us, Lord. Amen.